I never thought planting a row of sunflowers along my fence line would land me in handcuffs. But that's exactly what happened when I dared to call out the golden-haired tyrant next door for bulldozing her way onto my land. She screamed in her phone that I was the aggressor, a crazy neighbor harassing a single mom, while her crew dumped gravel right over the survey markers I'd paid good money to install just last spring. And the kicker? The cops bought her sob story hook, line, and sinker until I whipped out the deed proving every inch of that disputed strip was mine, not hers, and she just confessed a felony trespass on a live 911 call. It started innocently enough, or at least that's what I tell myself on those nights when the bile rises in my throat. Picture this: a sleepy cul-de-sac in suburban Phoenix, Arizona, the kind of place where retirees sip iced tea on wraparound porches and kids blast off fireworks a week early every 4th of July. I bought my 2-story rancher 5 years back, right after my divorce, figuring the HOA covenants would keep things tidy without turning into a full-time job. The house was a steal, foreclosure from some flipper who'd overextended. In the yard, a blank canvas begging for my green thumb. I spent weekends knee-deep in mulch, coaxing tomatoes from cracked adobe soil and rigging up a hammock between the mesquite trees. It was my sanctuary, the first real home I'd owned since the ex-wife torched our savings on her self-discovery yoga retreats in Bali. Then came the Thompsons. Or rather, Thompson, singular, because Derek, the husband, was a ghost who jetted off to Silicon Valley boardrooms before dawn and stumbled home reeking of craft IPA after midnight, if he came home at all. His wife, Karen, that Karen, the one who'd make the internet's archetype blush, swooped in a neighborhood like a hawk eyeing a fresh carcass. She rolled up in a Tesla that probably cost more than my mortgage, her yoga-sculpted arms unloading artisanal throw pillows from some boutique in Scottsdale. "We're here to elevate the community," she announced at the HOA potluck, her voice dripping with that faux California wellness vibe, like she'd just meditated her way to moral superiority. Elevate? Honey, the only thing getting elevated was her ego, perched atop a pyramid scheme of essential oils and empowerment coaching sessions for stay-at-home exec wives. At first, it was petty stuff. The passive-aggressive emails about my unkempt succulents spilling onto the shared sidewalk. Never mind that the covenants explicitly allowed natives air escaping. Then the flags. I hung a Weather American one on my garage, and she petitioned the board claiming it clashed with the aesthetic. The board, a gaggle of golf shirt dads, too spineless to say no, fined me $50. I paid it, chuckling under my breath, because I knew her type, entitled, performative, the kind who weaponizes politeness until it draws blood. But I kept my head down, focusing on my gig as a freelance graphic designer, dodging her side-eye glares during trash day. That all shattered the morning I woke to the rumble of heavy machinery. Coffee in hand, I stepped onto the back patio in my boxers and flip-flops, expecting the neighbor's kid revving his dirt bike again. Instead, there was a backhoe chewing up the earth between our properties, a crew of day laborers in hard hats dumping load after load of gravel onto what used to be a tidy strip of my Bermuda grass. My heart slammed against my ribs like a caged animal. That wasn't just any patch. It was the easement line, the one I'd had surveyed after buying the place because the previous owner had whined about boundary creep from the Thompsons' predecessors. The stakes were still there, neon orange flags waving like surrender banners in the dust cloud. "What the hell is this?" I bellowed, vaulting the low fence in 2 strides. The operator killed the engine, wiping sweat from his brow with a bandana. "Ma'am's orders," he grunted, jerking a thumb toward Karen, who stood on her driveway in Lululemon tights and a cropped hoodie, clipboard in hand like she was directing a TED Talk on home improvement. Her smile was all teeth, the kind that says bless your heart while plotting your demise. "Oh, hi, neighbor. Just sprucing up the curb appeal. You know how it is. Derek's been on my case about resale value since the market dipped." She air-kissed the space near my cheek, her perfume a cloying cloud of vanilla and entitlement. Resale value? This which was turning my side yard into her personal parking pad. "That's my land, Karen. The survey's right there. See the flags? You're trespassing." I pointed to the markers, half buried now under the gravel mound. Her eyes flicked to them, then back to me, unblinking like a lizard sizing up prey. Nonsense. This is community space. The HOA approved it last meeting. You must have missed the email chain. Lie. I've been CC'd on every drone about holiday light wattage limits, but nothing about boundary grabs. The crew shifted uncomfortably, one guy muttering in Spanish about permisos. Call your boss. I snapped at the foreman. Tell him to stop before I do. Karen's face tightened, that wellness mask cracking just a hair. She whipped out her iPhone, rose gold case, naturally, and started tapping away, live streaming to her sisterhood group or whatever coven she ran. By noon, the gravel was leveled into a makeshift driveway extension, curving smugly onto my property like an uninvited guest who won't leave. I spent the afternoon on hold with the HOA board, getting voicemail purgatory while Karen blasted pop country from a Bluetooth speaker, toasting seltzers with her Pilates pals who dropped by to support the vision. Vision? It was theft, plain and simple, wrapped in a bow of suburban manifest destiny. That night, Derek slunk home, Ty Askew, and I caught him through the fence, clapping Karen on the back as she recapped the drama. Babe, you're a rock star, he slurred, oblivious or indifferent. Rock star? More like roadkill waiting to happen. I poured a bourbon neat, sat on my patio under the stars, big Arizona sky, indifferent as ever, and plotted. Not revenge, not yet. Justice. But in neighborhoods like ours, justice wears brass knuckles. The next morning, I woke with a fire in my gut that no amount of huevos rancheros could douse. Armed with my deed, the survey plat, and a thermos of black coffee, I marched over before the dew had burned off. Karen was in her office, a she-shed that looked like a Pinterest explosion, yapping on a Zoom call about disrupting the wellness space. I rapped on the window, deed flapping like a matador's cape. She muted herself, sliding the door open with exaggerated patience. Can this wait? I'm in the middle of. No, it can't. That driveway, it's gone. By end of day, I slapped the documents on her glass-top desk, the survey lines screaming red ink accusations. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the pages like they were personally offensive. This is ridiculous. We've owned this house 8 months. Nobody said a word before. Owned? Try leased on his tech salary, but I didn't quibble semantics. Because you didn't steal anything before. Pack it up, Karen, or I call the county. Her laugh was a bark, sharp as shattered quartz. The county? Sweetie, I am the county. My brother-in-law's on the planning commission. You'll be the one jumping through hoops. Brother-in-law? News to me, but in Phoenix, nepotism's just another cactus spine in the boot. She stood, all 5'4" of her channeling a bargain bin Elizabeth Holmes, and shoved the papers back at me. Take your little tantrum elsewhere. We're done here. Tantrum? That word lit the fuse. I snatched the documents, storming back to my place, where I fired off a certified letter to the HOA, Sisinji, the county assessor, and quoting every covenant violation from Chapter 1. By afternoon, replies trickled in. The board's milquetoast prez mumbling about mediation, the assessor's office requesting photos. I snapped him, close-ups of the gravel scarring my soil, the stakes uprooted like discarded toothpicks. Empowerment surged through me, hot and sweet as habanero honey. But Karen wasn't one to fold. That evening, as I grilled flank steak, marinated in lime and cumin, the scent wafting like a peace offering, the wail of sirens pierced the dusk. 2 squad cars, lights flashing lazy blues and reds, pulled up to my curb. Karen stood on her porch, arms folded, a queen surveying her conquest, with Derek lurking behind like a bad sequel. Officer, she cooed as the cops approached. Thank God you're here. He's been harassing us all day, yelling threats, waving papers like a maniac. I felt so unsafe. I had to call 911. Harassing? The cop, a burly guy named Ramirez with a mustache that screamed 80s cop show, turned to me. Sir, ma'am says you've been making threats over a property dispute. I blinked, spatula in hand, steak sizzling forgotten on the grill. Threats? I showed her the deed. That's my land she's paved over. Illegal trespass, felony in Arizona. Ramirez sighed. The universal sound of overtime boredom. Let's see the docs. I handed them over, watching his brows knit as he traced the lines. Karen interjected, voice pitching high with that practice quiver. He's unhinged, divorced, lives alone, probably off his meds. I have witnesses. My friend saw him pounding on my door. Witnesses? Her gaggle from earlier, sipping rose like it was truth serum. Ramirez flipped through the pages, then eyed the gravel pad. Ma'am, this line here looks like it crosses the boundary. Karen's face went the color of overripe avocado. It's a misunderstanding. The surveyor must have erred. On a certified plat? Ma'am, that's tampering if intentional. He radioed for backup intel, and within minutes, dispatch confirmed. My deed held her driveway was a 6-foot encroachment. The second cop, a no-nonsense Latino with a ponytail, uncuffed me. Wait, when did that happen? And turned to Karen. You want to explain the 911 for a civil matter? That's misuse, potential fine. She sputtered, invoking her rights and that phantom brother-in-law, but Ramirez wasn't biting. Step inside, folks. We'll sort this at the station if needed. Derek emerged then, bleary-eyed, stammering apologies that landed like wet confetti. As the cops escorted her to give a statement. Her, not me. I flipped my steak, medium-rare perfection, and raised a silent toast to the universe's delayed but delicious karma. Word spread like wildfire in dry brush. By Monday, the neighborhood Facebook group was ablaze. Karen's driveway debacle. Who knew? With memes of her Tesla stuck in metaphysical mud. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, and I showed up in my best button-down, armed with printouts and a USB of the 911 audio. Public record, baby. Karen slunk in late, eyes puffy from what I assumed was a rage cry in her Tesla. The Prez cleared his throat, avoiding her glare. Per covenants, Section 4.2, encroachments require unanimous approval. None was sought. Murmurs rippled. Old Mrs. Hargrove from down the street piped up. And what about my flags? You find me for less. Solidarity, Arizona style. Karen launched into defense mode. A monologue blending victimhood and virtue signaling. Single mom burdens, Derek's high-pressure job, how my aggression triggered her PTSD from a toxic ex. PTSD? From a graphic designer with a sunflower obsession? The room snorted collectively. I let her wind down, then dropped the mic. This isn't about flags or feelings. It's theft. And on that 911 call, you admitted to directing the crew. Audio's right here. Felony trespass, per ARS 13 to 1,502. Gasps. Her brother-in-law. Turns out he's county. All right, parking enforcement, not planning. The board voted 5-2 to fine her triple the gravel cost, plus removal by week's end. She stormed out, slamming the community center door so hard the inspirational one block, one family poster fluttered. But victory's a sly fox. It bites when you least expect. The backlash hit Karen like a monsoon. Her empowerment clients ghosted, whispers of bully and entitled chasing her Insta-perfect feed. Derek started sleeping on the couch, rumors swirling of his work trips to a certain barista in Tempe. She doubled down, of course, petitioned for a variance, hired a sleazy lawyer who quoted biblical "love thy neighbor" in emails. I countered with a quiet countersuit for damages, soil remediation, emotional distress, take that, and punitive for the 911 stunt. Court date loomed like a thunderhead. I prepped alone in my kitchen, surrounded by takeout boxes and dog-eared legal pads, the sunflowers I'd replanted nodding encouragement outside. Karen? She lawyered up big, retained some ambulance chaser from Mesa, probably on contingency. The hearing was a circus. Judge, a grizzled vet with zero patience for HOA drama, listened to her tearful testimony about dreams crushed and community harmony. Then my turn. Facts, docs, the audio playing her voice crisp as a confession. Yeah, tell them to push it another foot. His yard's wasted anyway. The gavel fell like thunder. Trespass upheld, $15,000 in damages, and a restraining order barring her from my property line. Poetic, given her boundary issues. She deflated in the gallery, makeup streaking like war paint in retreat. Derek filed papers that night. Divorce docs hit the public docket by Friday. I drove home through twilight canyons, windows down, Willie Nelson crooning about mamas and outlaws. The gravel was gone, my yard patched with sod that had green up come spring. Neighbors waved, real ones, not her sycophants, slipping casseroles onto my porch like peace treaties. But as I uncorked a celebratory Zinfandel, scrolling her now private Insta, last post, a black and white selfie captioned, "Rising from ashes," a hollow ache settled in. Revenge? It tasted like ash too. She'd lost her perch, sure. House listed at a loss, her brand in tatters. But me? I'd traded peace for this Pyrrhic parade. Every court date a scar on my sanctuary. Months blurred. Phoenix summers baked the grudge out of me, or so I thought. Karen decamped to a condo downtown. Derek shacked up with a barista. The HOA elected a new prez who actually read the bylaws. I dated a bit. A park ranger with laugh lines and a rescue mutt. Found rhythm in the quiet. Sunflowers towered 8 feet, seating volunteers everywhere, defiant blooms against the fence. Then, one crisp October dawn, a manila envelope thudded onto my mat. No return address, postmarked Scottsdale. Inside, a check for the damages, scrawled note in her looping script. You win. But neighbors? We're all just trespassing on borrowed time. No apology, just that cryptic barb, laced with the bitterness of a fallen queen. I cashed it, framed the note above my desk, a trophy of sorts. But on nights when the wind howls through the mesquites, I wonder, was it justice or just another layer of gravel on the soul? In America, land's the dream, but fighting for it? That's the nightmare that lingers. The fallout from that courtroom smackdown rippled wider than I could have imagined, turning our cul-de-sac into a microcosm of every petty war that's ever scarred a suburb. Karen's defeat wasn't just personal. It cracked the facade of our HOA like a fault line in the Sonoran Desert. Suddenly, folks who'd nodded along to her edicts started piping up, complaints about her suggested dues hikes for the community pool, which she never used, citing chlorines or a disruption, or the time she'd shamed the single dad across the street for his kids' trampoline vibes. Emails flooded the group chat. Time for real change, with eggplant emojis winking like co-conspirators. I stayed out of it mostly, tending my garden like it was therapy. The new sod took root unevenly, patches yellowing where her gravel had poisoned the soil. And I spent weekends on my knees, aerating and fertilizing, whispering encouragements to the earth like a lunatic monk. My park ranger date, Lena, ribbed me about it over craft beers at a Tempe taproom. You're one step from building a moat, cowboy. She had a point. The victory high faded fast, leaving me twitchy, scanning shadows for the next entitlement ambush. But Karen? Oh, she didn't slink away quietly. Her condo phase was a Phoenix farce. Press releases to local mommy bloggers about reinventing resilience, a podcast launch called Boundaries Breached, where she spun our saga as inspirational fodder for alpha women reclaiming space. Listeners ate it up, the irony thicker than her contour makeup. She even guested on a true crime knockoff, recasting me as the obsessive vigilante who'd driven a family apart. Derek's divorce filing? My fault. Naturally, triggered by the stress I'd inflicted. The barista? A rebound misunderstanding. I laughed it off at first, sharing clips with Lena over popcorn, but the barb stuck, festering like cholya thorns. Then came the doxing. Subtle at first. Anonymous Yelp reviews tanking my freelance gigs. Unreliable designer with anger issues, avoid. Tied to my real name. Unearthed from public records. A client bailed on a logo project, muttering about drama. I traced the IP to a VPN in Scottsdale, but Maricopa County Sheriff shrugged. Civil matter, buddy. Civil? Try cyberbullying with a side of sabotage. Lena urged me to countersue, but lawyers quoted fees that'd drain my IRA faster than a Vegas weekend. Instead, I armored up, private listings, a P.O. box for mail, and doubled down on the garden, planting thorny roses along the fence like nature's razor wire. The a reckoning hit fever pitch at the annual picnic. I'd skipped the last three, but this year, as the new prez, a no BS widow named Carla who'd clashed with Karen over pet policies, emailed an invite with your input valued in bold. I showed, bearing a cooler of Dos Equis and my A-game skepticism. The park buzzed with folding tables groaning under potato salad and Jell-O molds. Kids chasing glow sticks as the sun dipped low. Carla cornered me by the cornhole setup. We owe you. That driveway stunt? Wake-up call. We're auditing all the approvals she rubber-stamped. Before I could high-five her, Karen materialized, uninvited of course, in a caftan that screamed boho chic apology tour. Her entourage, 2 podcasters with ring lights and a healing crystal vendor, turning our potluck into an infomercial set. Community healing starts with presence, she intoned, microphone in hand, as if we'd all been waiting for her TEDx redemption arc. Gasps rippled. Mrs. Hargrove muttered audacity into her deviled egg. I should have walked, but the bourbon in my blood sang a different tune. Presence? Like the kind where you pave over deeds. My voice carried, amplified by the mic she'd left hot. The podcasters pivoted, eyes gleaming content gold. Karen's smile froze, a rictus of practiced poise. Growth means forgiving past. Miscommunications. I've donated to the HO a scholarship in your name, a peace offering. Scholarship? The one she'd founded with dues she'd skimmed? Carla stepped in, voice steel. Appreciated, but we're dissolving it. Audits pending. Murmurs swelled to a roar. Turns out, Karen's donations were IOUs backed by hot air. Her crystal hawker slunk away. The podcasters live-tweeted HOA scam, racking likes faster than a cat video. She turned on me then, eyes blazing emerald daggers. This is your doing. You poisoned them against me. Poisoned? Pot, kettle, driveway gravel. Nah, Karen, you did that yourself. 911 calls for parking spots? That's not leadership. That's lunacy. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, phones out, capturing her meltdown in 4K. She lunged, verbally, thank God, spewing a torrent. My misogyny, how I'd emasculated Derek, rich from the horse's mouth, even dragging my divorce into it, claiming I'd abandoned my ex like a coward. Low blow, and it landed. Lena, who'd tagged along, squeezed my hand, but the sting burned. The podcasters ate it up. Exclusive. HOA queen unthroned. Sirens wailed again. Not 911 this time, but mall cops from the adjacent strip, summoned by a busybody who'd mistaken the shouting for a brawl. Karen spun on her heel, caftan swirling like a defeated cape, and fled to her Prius, entourage in tow. The picnic dissolved into cathartic chatter. Stories of her fines for non-conforming mailboxes, her veto of the block's Dia de los Muertos altar as too morbid. Carla raised a plastic cup. To boundaries, real ones. Cheers echoed, mine hollow. Victory lap? More like a victory limp. That night, scrolling the viral clips, Karen Koo trending locally, I felt the backlash's double edge. Supporters flooded my inbox. Hero, from strangers, gig offers from anti-HOA podcasts. But trolls too. Bitter incel ruins woman's life. Lena crashed at my place. Her Ranger Tail's a bomb, but sleep evaded me. Karen's peace offering check? It bounced. Insufficient funds, her empire of oils and coaching crumbling under lawsuit weight from jilted clients. Winter crept in soft, saguaros dusted with rare frost. I thrived, oddly, freelance booming with revenge story, branding, Lena's mutt claiming my couch as territory. But the note from her envelope haunted, that borrowed time, line looping like a bad country ballad. Was she circling back? Rehabbing her rep on TikTok lives, lessons from loss. Spring bloomed vengeful. Rosa Parks event, community garden build, my donation of seedlings the hook. I arrived early, tilling plots with volunteers, the scent of turned earth a reset button. Then, her shadow, Karen, in overalls and a bandana, wielding a trowel like a scepter. Volunteering, she announced to the group, to give back. Carla eyed her warily but waved her in. Optics, I guessed. We locked eyes across the furrows. Hers held no fire, just a weary gleam. "Truce," she murmured, kneeling to plant basil beside my tomatoes. "Truce." After the doxing, the bounce check, but the sun beat down impartial, bees droning hymns to renewal. "Words are cheap, Karen. Actions." I nodded to the soil. She dug in, silent, her hands, manicured no more, blistered by noon. Volunteers whispered, but she worked, hauling mulch without complaint. By dusk, plots teemed with life, peppers, herbs, a shared harvest for the block. Was it redemption? Nah, more like survival. Her gigs dried up, Derek's alimony a trickle. She confided later, over lukewarm lemonade, hit rock bottom. Therapy, actually listening. Rock bottom for her was my starting line, but I nodded, the grudge loosening like old roots. Summer solstice brought the twist. Lena and I, official now, hosted a barbecue. Low-key, string lights, and esmores. Invites went block-wide, no exclusions. Karen showed solo, bearing pie from a bakery job she'd taken. Awkward chit-chat by the fire pit, her laughing at my sunflower puns. Then, as stars wheeled overhead, she pulled me aside. "The note? Mailed in spite. But you're right, we're all borrowing." I clink her solo cup. "Then let's not default on a rant. Peace, fragile as eggshell, but real." Or so I thought. Autumn winds carried whispers. Karen's Comeback podcast episode dropped teasing the man who stole my spark. Clickbait? Or backslide? I tuned in, bourbon-braced, Lena snoring beside me. Her voice polished anew. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's weaponizing the wound." Guests? Doc Surside blocked, spinning yarns of my tyranny. "The check?" "Symbolic gesture," she purred, admitting the balance with a wink. Rage reignited, hotter than July pavement. I could have sued again, but instead I hit record. My own pod, Trespassers Beware, chronicling the full arc, audio clips and all. It went viral, sponsors calling, book deals dangling. Karen's EP faded to crickets. Her crystal crew bailed. Winter solstice, her Prius idled to my curb. Lights off, engine humming. She knocked, frost-kissed, envelope in hand. "This one?" A real check, plus apology scrawled raw. I was the gravel. "Sorry." She drove off into the night, taillights fading like regrets. I framed it beside the first, a diptych of human frailty. Land's the dream, sure, but people? The real contested territory. In America, we fight for fences, but the bitter end? It's learning to let the weeds grow wild sometimes. As the new year dawned with fireworks popping like celebratory gunfire over the Salt River Valley, I figured the Karen Chronicle had finally shuttered. Another chapter closed in the grand American book of neighborly feuds. My podcast episodes racked streams, turning Trespassers Beware into a niche hit among Reddit's r/HOL crowd, with listener tales pouring in like confessions at a tent revival. Lena and I even road tripped to Sedona for a reset, hiking vortex trails where the red rocks hummed with pseudoscience and possibility. "Let it go," she said, her hand warm in mine as we watched sunset bleed across the mesas. "She's a ghost now." Ghost. Try poltergeist. February brought the subpoena, delivered by a process server who looked like he'd rather be golfing. Karen's lawsuit, defamation, emotional distress, intentional infliction of harm via my pod. Her lawyer? That Mesa chaser, upgraded with contingency cash from a GoFundMe she'd spun as justice for the Silence Mom. The claim? My episodes falsely portrayed her as a criminal bully, tanking her career recovery. Career? From CEO, wife to pie slinger? I laughed in the lawyer's office, but it was the bitter chuckle of a man who'd tasted freedom only to have it yanked back. Discovery dragged like monsoon season. Depositions in sterile conference rooms smelling of stale coffee and desperation. Karen showed up coiffed and composed, her testimony a masterclass in selective memory. The driveway? A collaborative error. The 911? Panic from fear. Me? A stalkerish figure, fixated on control. Her GoFundMe donors lapped it up, comment sections ablaze with "Stand Strong," "Queen," and "Men Like Him Ruin Lives." Backlash 2.0. My gigs dipped, clients ghosting with vague vibe shifts. Lena held steady, but tension crept in, arguments over my obsession, her mutt sensing the storm and hiding under beds. The HOA, bless Carla, rallied. Affidavits from the board, audio logs of meetings where Karen's leadership bordered on extortion. Mrs. Hargrove testified via Zoom, her voice quavering but fierce. She fined me for bird feeders, said they attracted low-vibe pests. Hypocrite. The judge, same grizzled vet, rolled his eyes at the filings but set trial for May, citing frivolous but persistent. Frivolous? It was vengeance porn, Karen's last gasp at relevance. She amped the drama. Pressers outside the courthouse, flanked by supporters in matching tees. HOAs hurt women. Local news bit. A perky anchorette cooed sympathy, framing it as suburban gender wars. My pod? Demonized as revenge porn for the aggrieved everyman. Trolls doxed Lena's ranger station, spam calls flooding lines. We unplugged, hunkered in with takeout pho and bootleg DVDs, but the siege wore thin. April showers unearthed the dirt. A listener tip led to my PI buddy, ex-cop turned skip tracer, digging into Karen's recovery. Turns out, her podcast flop wasn't organic. She'd astroturfed reviews with sock accounts tied to that GoFundMe circle. Worse, the bounce check? Part of a pattern, bad debts to suppliers, a civil judgment for unpaid coaching dues. Derek's alimony fight? She'd hidden assets in a shell LLC, Wellness Warriors Incorporated, funneling donations to offshore yoga retreats. Felony fraud territory if the feds cared about suburban scams. I fed it to my lawyer, a shark named Ruiz who'd cut his teeth on cartel busts. Leverage, he grinned, filing a motion to dismiss with exhibits that painted Karen as the grifter supreme. The judge bit hard, dismissing her suit with sanctions, $10,000 of my fees, plus a gag order barring her from public commentary on me. Gavel down, her face crumpled, supporters scattering like roaches at dawn. News cycle flipped. HOA hustle, woman's suit backfires. But the bidder? It doubled down. Victory tours are illusions. The real cost tallies and sleep lost, trust shattered. Lena proposed that night. Ring from a Grand Canyon jeweler, simple silver with turquoise inlay. Build with me, not against. Tears stung. I said yes, but the what-ifs whispered. What if I'd ignore the backhoe? Let her pave and peace out? Summer scorched in. Our wedding a low-key affair at a Papago Park overlook. Lena in sundress white. Me in linen shirt. 50 guests toasting with prickly pear margaritas. No HOA drama. Vows exchanged under cottonwoods, shedding like confetti. Karen? Absent, but her shadow loomed. A wedding crasher in effigy. Her gag, order a muzzle that chafed. Honeymoon in Big Sur. Waves crashing like applause, but emails waited. Carla alerting to Karen's farewell letter to the board, resignation laced with barbs about toxic masculinity in governance. Subtle dig, but Ruiz flagged it. Violation? We let it slide. Mercy's the ultimate revenge. Fall foliage turned the canyons gold. Our first anniversary approaching with a nursery rhyme twist. Lena pregnant, ultrasound wand waving miracles. I babied the garden, building raised beds for heirloom carrots, dreaming of tiny hands in soil. Life, the great leveler, smoothed edges. Then, Thanksgiving Eve, the call. Ramirez, the cop from the 9/11 farce, now a detective. Your neighbor? Karen? Bar arrest. DUI, resisting. Name dropped you in holding, ranting about the man who ruined her. Ruined? Try self-sabotage symphony. Blood alcohol, triple limit. Passenger a podcaster pal. Car totaled into a median. No injuries, but charges stacked. Reckless. Priors from a Scottsdale shoplift. Essential oils, ironic. Bail hearing. I testified character. Hers, not mine. Recalling the garden day, her blistered hands. Flawed but trying. Judge released her to rehab. Mandatory. Her eyes met mine across the courtroom. Gratitude flickering before pride snuffed it. Why, she mouthed. I shrugged. Borrowed time, remember? Rehab chewed her up. 6 months in Flagstaff. Letters smuggled via Carla. Apologies raw, no polish. I was the trespasser everywhere. Marriage mirrors. Derek remarried the barista. Her pie gig? Promoted to manager. Small graces. Spring equinox. Discharge day. She knocked on our door. Lena answering, belly round with promise. Just thanks, Karen said, pie in hand, this one homemade. No entourage, no mic. We shared slices on the patio, baby kicks punctuating silences. The kid, she asked. Boy or girl? Surprise, Lena grinned. Karen nodded, eyes distant. Lucky. Teach him boundaries early. She left with a wave, Prius purring south. No podcast, no GoFundMe. Just a woman unmoored but upright. Our son arrived midsummer, screaming into monsoon rains. 8 pounds of fury and wonder. I held him first, tiny fist clutching my finger, and whispered the streets' lore like a lullaby. Backhoes and deeds, 911s and gravels, the cost of standing ground. Years spun, toddler tantrums mirroring old feuds, preschool drop-offs where Karen waved from afar, her life a quiet consultancy. Virtual coaching, no empire. We nodded civically, fences mended but remembered. The bitter end? Not hers alone. It's the echo, what we surrender in the fight. But watching my boy chase fireflies in that hard-won yard, sunflowers nodding sentinel, I reckon the trespass was worth it. America's dream isn't land. It's the legacy we till from the scars. Decades a thief, slipping by in blurs of Little League dust and PDA bake sales, turning our cul-de-sac saga into sepia-tone myth. The stuff of neighborhood legends whispered over fences like urban folklore. My son, Jax, grew lanky and quick-witted, inheriting Lena's curls and my stubborn streak, terrorizing the yard with soccer balls that chipped the roses I'd planted as thorns against memory. The HOA evolved under Carla's iron but fair hand. Covenant streamlined. No more vibe fines. Community gardens blooming block-wide with plots claimed by every ethnicity under the Phoenix sun. Korean grandmas coaxing kimchi radishes beside Syrian families at her. Karen? She faded into the wallpaper of what-ifs, a cautionary cameo in Jax's bedtime tales. And the driveway dragon learned to pave her own path, far from fences. Her consultancy hummed modest. Online sessions for boundary breakthroughs, irony not lost. We crossed paths at block parties, small talk orbiting weather and traffic, her laugh lines deepening like arroyos after flash floods. Derek's second marriage imploded spectacularly. Barista bolted with the dog, leaving him slumming it in a trailer park off I-10, sightings rare as honest politicians. Life's leveler indeed, but ghosts don't stay buried. They resurface with the monsoons. Jax's 10th birthday loomed, a bash planned with piñatas and paletas when the email hit. From an unknown sender, subject unfinished business. Attached, a manuscript, Karen's memoir, Gravel in the Garden, a woman's reckoning with suburban siege. Arc for beta readers, she'd written. Your perspective shaped this. Honest feedback. Honest? Might get twisted like barbed wire. Lena scanned it over coffee, her ranger shifts trimmed for mom duty. Trigger warning on every page. She's still spinning. Spin? Try Vortex. The book framed our clash as her hero's journey. Me, the shadow mentor whose ruthless clarity forced her phoenix rise. The 911? A cry for help in chaos. Doxing? Omitted, naturally. Her fraud flirtations? Desperate pivots in a man's world. It ended triumphant. Rehab, epiphany, forgiving the foe. Me, unnamed but unmistakable. With a dedication to the trespassers who teach us home. I could have shredded it, but curiosity's a cruel cat. I read through Jax's soccer practice, highlighter bleeding yellow accusations. Lies layered thick, my stalkerish fixation revived, divorce drags fictionalized into abandonment porn. The garden truce? Twisted into her vulnerable outreach, my silence brooding resentment. Beta feedback? I fired back unvarnished. Truth's the first casualty here. Own the gravel, not the garden. Her reply pinged swift. Artistic license. Pain subjective. Subjective? Try slanderous. Ruiz, semi-retired but game. Reviewed. Libel light. Veiled enough for deniability, but your pod mentions make it traceable. We could have sued, again, but Jax's party loomed, balloons inflating like optimism. Let karma cure it, Lena advised, popping a piñata candy into her mouth. Karma? More like complacency's cousin. The launch party was a spectacle. Virtual, of course, with Karen beaming from her condo balcony. Backdrop of fairy lights and succulents. Irony's gift. Guests? Her old podcaster posse, plus a smattering of wellness influencers hawking CBD for fence mending. Sales spiked locally, Phoenix housewives devouring the drama like churros at a fair. Reviews glowed. Empowering. Raw truth. My pod listeners? They rallied. Episode dropped dissecting the memoir mirage. Clips going viral on TikTok with Gravelgate 2. Backlash boomeranged. Her Amazon rank tanked. 1-star salvos citing gaslighting gold. She called then. Voicemail. Voice cracked like desert clay. Didn't mean to reopen wounds. Just. Processing. Processing? 10 years late. I deleted it, but the scar itched. A reminder that bitterness ferments eternal. Jax's bash was magic. Kids shrieking as candy rained. Grill smoke curling stories into the dusk. Carla dropped by with her famous tres leches, regaling tales of the old regime. As piñata guts littered the lawn, Karen's Prius idled at the curb. Uninvited spectator, engine humming hesitation. She emerged tentative, gift bag in hand. A soccer ball, scuffed but signed by a Sounders player. Her research? Spot on. For the little kicker. No strings. Jax, oblivious to lore, beamed. Cool. Wanna play? She did. Awkward at first, her kicks wild, laughter rusty. Lena watched wary, but I nodded. Borrowed time encore. We joined in, a motley scrimmage under street lamps, bruises from friendly fire the only score. Post-party cleanup. Jax asleep with sugar crash. Karen lingered by the roses. The book. It's my gravel. Dumped it all out. Confession hung heavy. Why now? I asked, pruning shears, snipping spent blooms. Jax, reminds me of chances lost. Derek's kid with her? Estranged already. Don't want that echo. Vulnerability, unscripted. I sheared a thorn, blood beating. Echoes fade if you don't amplify. She nodded, leaving with a hug, brief, bone dry. The memoir? Pulled from shelves weeks later. Creative differences with the publisher. Her consultancy pivoted to grief gardening, workshops on weeding regrets. Fitting. Years accelerated. Jax's teen angst a mirror to my old grudge, hormones hurling soccer cleats like accusations. Lena climbed ranger ranks, leading eco tours where she'd quip about boundary disputes with bobcats. Me? Pod evolved to fences and futures, interviewing folks from evictees to execs on reclaiming space. Karen guested once, anonymized, voice modulated, sharing the call that changed everything. Listeners lapped it. Ratings soared. Her end came quiet. Monsoon season's fury masking the crash. Drunk drive home from a workshop. Irony's cruel encore. Prius hydroplaning into a wash, swept away like so much silt. No note. No spectacle. Just a coroner's report citing long-term struggles. Funeral sparse. Her sister, brother-in-law long ghosted. A handful of clients, Derek no-show. I went, Lena's hand anchor, Jax at home with sitters. Eulogy by a mentee. She taught us to bloom through cracks. Gravel in the garden, indeed. Back home, I planted a mesquite sapling on the old boundary line. Tough, drought-hardy, roots that grip deep. Jax helped, dirt-caked questions probing. Was she the dragon dad? Worse, I said, patting soil. Human. Like us. He nodded, wise beyond cleats. Bitter end? Nah, it's the roots that remain, twisting toward light. In America's sprawl, we trespass daily. On dreams, on each other. But the real claim? Forged in the tilling, one forgiving furrow at a time. Epilogue whispers. Jack scores his first goal, crowd roaring. Lena and I renew vows under those same cottonwoods, silver threading our hair. The sunflowers reseed, eternal, nodding to ghosts we've outgrown. Land's just dirt. Legacy's the harvest.